Today I will show you a dark comedy from 2017, titled Two Pigeons. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. In the city of London, Hussein works as a very successful real estate agent that has even won the Employee of the Month award. This success is presented in his appearance, which he takes meticulous care of. Every morning he goes through a thorough grooming routine, and to go to the office he wears classy expensive suits. This is quite a contrast when compared to his apartment, which is incredibly messy. Blunt butts are everywhere and dirty dishes pile up in the sink. He can be quite stingy when it's not about his looks too, going as far as reusing tea bags. There is one thing Hussein doesn't know, however. There's a Spanish man called Orlan living in the wall behind his closet, and he comes out whenever Hussein leaves the apartment. Orlan is incredibly thin because he's barely surviving on the food he steals, and he doesn't take much so his presence isn't noticed. For example, he takes a spoonful of cereal from each box to make a whole bowl. This doesn't stop him from doing all kinds of nasty things though. He uses Hussein's toothbrush in his own mouth, uses his towel to clean his armpits and groin and puts it back without washing it, steals a t-shirt to wear, uses the dirty dishes then puts them back on the pile, reads the same book Hussein's reading and tears off pages to wipe his butt while he's in the bathroom, and even naps on his bed. He only goes back to his hiding spot when Hussein returns. One evening, while Hussein is watching a movie, he gets a call from his girlfriend who is coming back from her holiday to live with him and wants Hussein to pick her up at the terminal. Hussein obviously accepts and writes down the information on a sticky note that he puts on the fridge. After he goes to sleep, Orlan comes out again and does things like expertly practicing with Hussein's nunchucks and changing the settings on his alarm clock. Because of this change, the next morning, Hussein is late for work and rushes out of the apartment. Orlan comes out again and continues to pull his shenanigans. He empties in the toilet the bottle he keeps in the closet to relieve himself, uses Hussein's old tea bags to make himself some tea, and when he uses a little too much milk he refills the bottle with water, changes the sticky note with one written by himself with slightly different information, plays the guitar while singing in Spanish, smokes the pot blunts Hussein has left around and watches the two pigeons on the window. While doing so, he makes a funny voice pretending it's the birds talking, and through this dialogue, he reveals some of his past. Once upon a time, he had a girlfriend, and when she got pregnant, they decided they should find somewhere bigger to live in. When Hussein returns in the evening, he finally begins cleaning the apartment to get it ready for his girlfriend. He also calls his dealer Sonny, who brings him more pot and tells him about some racism he's gone through while trying to get a job as an actor. After Sonny leaves and Hussein goes to sleep, Orlan comes out again, and this time, he writes down Hussein's credit card information, putting away the little piece of paper safely in his underwear. The following day, Hussein finishes cleaning the apartment before he's called by his girlfriend, who is angry because he hasn't come to pick her up on time. Hussein doesn't understand what happened because he's been following what he wrote on the sticky note, but he rushes out of the apartment to make things right. As soon as he is out of the door, Orlan's shenanigans begin. He uses the mouthwash, but instead of spitting into the sink he spits it back into the bottle, changes into clean clothes and tosses the dirty ones under the bed, and makes a trail of crumbs on the floor. This time, when doing the voices for the pigeons, he mentions he and his girlfriend had been looking at an apartment in London that was small and very expensive, but a very nice agent convinced them to give it a chance anyway. He also leaves the window open. When Hussein arrives with his girlfriend Mel, they find the pigeons inside the apartment, who after eating all the crumbs they relieve themselves on Hussein's favorite chair. After he gets them to fly out the window while wondering how it got opened in the first place, Mel takes a look at the cupboards and scolds Hussein for his lack of real food and being so stingy as to reuse tea bags. She goes out for groceries, and later in the evening, she cooks a real meal instead of ordering takeout like he often does. Hussein does like the pasta she makes, but dinner ends up being an awkward affair when they argue about the grocery money. After they go to bed, Orlan disconnects Hussein's phone from the charger. In the morning, Hussein brings breakfast to bed for Mel as an apology for the previous day and promises her to take her somewhere nice later. Orlan hears all this while relieving himself in a bottle. The couple goes out in the evening after discussing the changes Mel wants to do to the apartment, and Orlan decides to go all out tonight. He takes a bath and wastes a lot of shampoo, shaves his armpits with Hussein's face razor, makes himself some pasta, puts on new clothes, cuts one of Hussein's ties, throws Hussein's diamond tie pin in the toilet, fills their various bottles of grooming products with bleach and other cleaning products and spits into the mouthwash. When he's done, he takes some cookies and a glass of milk with him to his hiding spot right before the couple comes back, and he enjoys them while listening to them arguing again, which ends with Mel leaving Hussein alone in bed. The next day, Hussein starts noticing his body isn't feeling so well and argues with Mel again when he can't find his tie pin. Orlan comes out after they leave and almost gets caught when Mel comes back because she's forgotten something. Luckily for him, hiding among the closet clothes is enough not to be noticed since she's in a hurry. Then he comes out again and a new series of nasty pranks begin. He blows his nose with Mel's panties, searches for adult movies on Mel's computer, and has a little moment to himself when playing the guitar. He also watches the pigeons again, and their dialogue this time reveals that the apartment he and his girlfriend had chosen was given to a better offer after they had already signed the contract and paid the deposit. They also had already given their notice to their previous landlord, so they would have to talk to him to be taken back or they would end up on the streets, but they couldn't stop worrying about the baby. Days pass and the couple gets in more and more arguments caused by Orlan's shenanigans. Hussein thinks it was Mel that cut his tie and disconnected his phone the other day, and Mel thinks he's the one that watched adult movies on her laptop and came on her panties. Both of them obviously deny the other's accusations, even commenting how a ghost couldn't possibly watch adult movies on the computer. After they go to sleep very apart from each other, Orlan takes the chance to take a huge dump in their toilet and doesn't flush it. In the morning, this causes another argument. They blame each other for the surprise in the toilet, and Mel also thinks Hussein has been using her shampoo. This time, their fight escalates to the point where Mel decides to break up with him, telling him to go to work and promising she won't be there when he returns. Orlan comes out as soon as Mel is gone, incredibly happy at this turn of events. Today's pranks include cutting his nails and hiding the toenails under the pillow, urinating all over the cluttery, cleaning his butt with a toothbrush, and reading Hussein's book some more. When Hussein comes back, he uses the cluttery without suspecting anything and is disgusted to find the toenails under his pillow. Sometime later, when Sonny comes to bring him more pot, Hussein tells him a very distorted version of the fight, claiming he was the one that broke up with Mel and she begged to stay. He also thinks there may be a ghost in the apartment because the surprise he had found in the toilet couldn't be a woman's. Days continue to pass and Hussein keeps on using his things without knowing what Orlan does to them when he's gone. He cleans his ears with a toothbrush, drops snot into the mouthwash, and licks the bottle of pills Hussein has been taking because he continues to feel unwell. One night, Orlan is in the kitchen, smashing a bunch of aspirins and throwing them in the electric kettle when Hussein wakes up and comes over to make some tea. Orlan saves himself just in time by climbing on top of the cupboards, where he easily fits thanks to his skeletal body. He's getting more and more daring these days, so before returning to his hiding spot, he comes closer to a sleeping Hussein and sniffs him, then he draws a male member on the misted mirror, messes with Hussein's digital schedule, and throws every single toilet paper roll out the window. Hussein is woken up in the morning by a phone call from his boss, and he tells him he won't go to work today because he feels awful, so he'll send him the schedule for him to cover it instead. Before he even gets to hang up, he finds himself rushing to the bathroom to throw up in the toilet. That morning he also gets a surprise delivery. It's a freezer that Orlan ordered with Hussein's credit card. The delivery guys say they can't take it back because Hussein is a dummy that signed the sheet before even looking at what it is, so if he wants to send it back, he must call the depot directly. Now the huge box sits in the middle of his living room, taking up a lot of space. After cleaning off the drawing on the mirror, Hussein discovers he's out of toilet paper, and since he can't go out because he's sick, he calls Sonny and asks him to bring him some. Sonny gets angry when Hussein is unhappy because the paper isn't the soft kind instead of being grateful, and tells him he needs to put himself together. Hussein says he will try. When Hussein starts feeling a bit better, he tries to call Mel, who won't answer him, and finally leaves the apartment again. Orlan comes out and sees the freezer, so he starts dancing around the apartment in celebration of how well his messing up of Hussein's life is going. One night, he gets even riskier and takes the blankets off of sleeping Hussein's body to then climb on the bed and cut his own hand with a knife, making it bleed on the mattress and Hussein's body to make it look like he's been bleeding. He also grabs Hussein's phone and takes many pictures of his own member, which he sends to some of the contacts. The following morning, Hussein finds the blood and gets worried about the possibility of cancer, so he calls a doctor to ask for an urgent appointment. At that moment, he gets a call from his boss, who gives him an official warning for having sent him the wrong schedule. A couple of hours later, his boss shows up at his apartment to demand an explanation on why Hussein sent him pictures of a male member. Hussein tries to deny it, but his boss doesn't believe him and fires him on the spot. As he goes back inside, Hussein finds the fridge open and water running in the kitchen sink, the bathroom sink and the bath. Getting worried about intruders, he grabs his nunchucks, then moves the mattress off the bed and opens the closet, but finds nothing. He also checks his phone and gets angry when he confirms the nasty pictures are there, so he grabs a knife and opens the freezer box. Afterward, he calls Mel to see if she was the one that bought it, which of course she denies, and Hussein also calls a locksmith to add extra locks to his door. When he's done, he falls asleep on his chair with his nunchucks and a knife in hand just in case. Orlan comes out then, and after opening the fridge, he tosses a piece of paper at Hussein, running back to his hiding spot before Hussein wakes up and gets worried about intruders when he finds the fridge open again. He searches the house, calling out for anyone there to show themselves, but finds nothing and decides to go to bed, weapon still in his hands. Orlan comes out again, and after reading for a while, he says hi to the pigeons. His dialogue for the birds this time tells us that he and his girlfriend weren't able to go back to their old house, so they had to stay at a B&B, but his girlfriend was getting sick and this couldn't be good for the baby, who was due in 3 weeks. Orlan cries at the memory before going into hiding again. The following morning, Hussein talks to his mom and tries to make her understand that the naughty pictures she got weren't from him. He is still feeling unwell and gets even more frustrated when he finds out his book is missing some pages. His apartment starts to get messy again, and Hussein also begins talking to the pigeons, mentioning they're the only company he has nowadays. Not wanting to cook, he fills the freezer with frozen pizzas, and moving is getting difficult as well, so he takes his TV to his bedroom so he can stay in bed. Orlan stays hidden under his bed and eats the cookies Hussein leaves around. One night he even goes as far as grabbing a knife and thinking of stabbing Hussein, but stops himself just in time. Being unemployed means Hussein is quickly running out of money, so he calls his parents for help, but they only tell him to get a job. When Sunny visits him again, he's surprised by how nasty the apartment has become, even worse than the old days, but Hussein isn't in the mood for chatting as always. He tells him to drop the pot and leave. Sunny is hurt and angry by this attitude coming from someone that he considered a friend but does as asked. One afternoon, while he's in bed watching some exercise videos, Hussein accidentally drops the remote control on the floor, and when he reaches out to grab it, he discovers Orlan under his bed. There's no point in hiding anymore, so Orlan comes out and starts insulting Hussein until he has him cornered in the bathroom. He starts explaining that Hussein had been the bastard agent that canceled their deal on an apartment, leaving them on the streets. The stress of the situation caused both the baby and his girlfriend to die during birth, and he blames Hussein for it. But instead of apologizing or showing sympathy, Hussein tells him he was just following orders, so he's as much of a victim as Orlan is. This angers Orlan, who proceeds to close the door behind him as he thinks of the right punishment for Hussein. Afterward, Orlan cleans the entire apartment, shaves off his beard, and puts on one of Hussein's expensive suits which don't fit him very well. He also puts out some breadcrumbs on top of the freezer and the window for the pigeons, and after saying goodbye to them, he finally leaves the building, taking with him 2 big bags of trash. Meanwhile, back in the apartment, the pigeons eat the crumbs on top of the freezer, which has been sealed up with tape, while Hussein calls his mom to tell her he's been stuck inside the freezer by some crazy old man and he needs her help. However, his mom doesn't take him seriously and hangs up on him. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.